In the spring of 2022, U.S. Army Pacific soldiers were in the Philippines, participating in bilateral training with the Philippine Army as part of exercises Salaknib and Balikatan. For some soldiers, it was their first time outside of the United States. For others, they were returning to a place that they call home.
I am from the Philippines. I was born and raised here for like 21 years. And I moved to California when I was 21 in 2011. And the petition, it took us 20 years of waiting to get the paperwork, just to get to the United States. For me, it's hard because the first time I moved to the United States, it was a big culture shock for me. Because being in the Philippines, like, I know everybody within like 3 miles of my house. And coming to the United States is very, very different. My plan before I moved to the United States, I want to join the Filipino Army, but my mom is so reluctant. But when I'm old enough, when I went to the United States, and my mom is still reluctant for me to join because I'm the oldest son, but I'm already old enough to make a decision, so I just end up joining without my mom's permissions. And when I joined the Army, it's basically like it opened my eyes, like how diverse the Army is. Like right now I'm in Hawaii and I am part of a Facebook page. It's basically like all Filipino brothers, like from private to like maybe colonel. They're on that page like helping each other, and wherever we go, they always stick together, like sharing food, like sharing the experience, like sharing everything that can like make one soldier like progress. And being a soldier and coming here on the Balikatan, it's really nice because like building or growing a healthy military like relationship with US and the Philippines, because like we can learn from each other.
Filipino immigration to the United States first began following the U.S. annexation of the Philippines in 1899 and continued after President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which gave immigration priority to relatives of U.S. citizens and permanent residents. But the process of immigrating is not always an easy one.
My name is Private First Class Jessica Ibon Romel. My dad's mom petitioned him to go to the US, so my dad just took me with him. My dad waited for his petition for like 10 years. My mom and dad wasn't married because they both have a separate petition. So when we moved to Hawaii, Maui, Hawaii, we were just supposed to visit there for like 2 weeks. But suddenly my grandpa passed away, which is my mom's petitioner. So we had to repeat her petition in order to get her in the US, but until right now it's still in processing. I grew up here for like 15 years, and I'll still be carrying that heritage even though I'll be in the United States. When I was a kid, I really admired my grandpa because he was in the Philippine Army too. And then ever since I was a kid, I really wanted to follow his footsteps. And then when I get to US, I pursue my dream to become a soldier. My mom was petrified, but they understand, or they supported me in the end, because they understand how they know being in the military would better my life, and I would support them financially.
For Filipino Americans, serving in the U.S. Army comes with a deeply rooted legacy. Just hours following the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Philippines was invaded by Japanese forces on December 8, 1941. Filipino Americans, who were unable to enlist in the then segregated U.S. Army, rallied together to push the U.S. government to create an all-Filipino American force to take back the country that they had once called home. Following President Roosevelt's change to the Selective Service Act, thousands of Filipino Americans would volunteer in the U.S. Army to create the 1st and 2nd Filipino Infantry Regiment, whose soldiers would lay the groundwork for liberating the Philippines. Filipino American service members continue to play an integral part in the U.S. Armed Forces. U.S. Army Captain Molly Lebowski, a civil affairs officer born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and raised in Corpus Christi, Texas, was guided by her heritage while serving on mission in the Philippines.
I'm Filipino American. My mom is born and raised here in the Philippines. My father's from the U.S. Heritage is important to me. It's my culture. It's the way I was raised, both on the Philippine side and the U.S. Especially being back here in the Philippines, there's a lot of strong ties and things that are just very familiar, even though there's so many people here that I don't know, but I see them and I see my family. Even though I wasn't born and raised here, my mom brought me back here a lot when I was a kid during the summers, and so got to know my cousins. I'm still very close to them, even though we didn't grow up together, every single day. I did get the chance to go and visit my family and go back home and see them, and that was incredible. Seeing my cousins, meeting some of their children for the first time, and then seeing my grandmother, who I didn't think I would get to see again. So to show them that I'm here because of my job with the U.S. Army means it has a large impact on them. They hold what I do and me serving my country in very high regard, and so for them to see that I'm here, I'm supporting their country and their nation as well as mine, it means a lot to them, and they understand the importance of it. My father served in the U.S. Navy. However, just like any other sailor, it took him all over the world, to include Subic Bay here in the Philippines. So part of our job, we were doing site surveys and everything leading up to Salaknib. And at one point I was in Subic Bay standing on the docks, and I couldn't help but think, maybe my dad stood here maybe about 40 years ago. One of the drivers asked me, am I a Philam, a Filipino American? I said yes. And I said I was raised by a Filipino woman. It's like, oh, what is that? She must be, I think he said, she must be stubborn or something like that. I'm like, yeah, she's stubborn, and she's hardworking, and she's proud, and she's giving, and she will fight anyone for what she believes in. And then I was thinking about it, and thinking about why I joined, and why what I always try to instill in those that look to me for leadership. And it's those same things, So when I think about Filipino American, of course, I wear U.S. Army on my chest because that's the country that I represent, but then I think about my core values, and that came from here, and that came from my mom. It's pretty cool to see it come full circle and be here.
Hey mom, kamusta? Niadak iti Philippines, bataang kamot nga makita. I know proud ka kanyak. And sabay ko mata duno malpas sa training dati pagkakataon ti nga pinagbabanding tayo aglalo kat ante nabayag nga hangka nakitan. So, I love you.